Hello, and welcome to the breakout session, Giving for Good. I'm Patricia Martell, supervising producer at CNBC. If supporting charitable causes is important to you, then it should likely be a part of your overall financial plan. Joining me today with some actionable advice and how to do this is Newman Kroft of Neuberger Berman. Holly, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Patty, thanks for having me.
Well, let's start from the beginning because you should have a plan to do this properly. Just like planning for retirement, why is it important to have a giving game plan?
Patty, I'm so glad that you asked that question because that's really the critical first step in philanthropy. And to have the most impact in your philanthropic giving, it's very important to be proactive rather than reactive. That's a way to make sure that you can have the most impact on your values and make change in issues that are important to you. Of course, it's always important to have some extra giving capacity to be reactive for causes of the day or perhaps to support friends who may be involved in causes that aren't at the top of your list. But if you have a philanthropic game plan for yourself and for your family, you're most able to execute and make change in issues that are top of mind for you.
And another reason why it's important to have a strategy is because the markets can be volatile. There are economic cycles. For example, we still have inflation that is stubbornly high, right? And you need to be able to have a plan to navigate these cycles.
Yeah, I think to have a disciplined approach to philanthropy is critical. And the earlier you start, the easier it is to maintain that practice. So as you say, markets are volatile. Last year, many of us felt poorer than we did the year before and in the many years before that when the market was on a tear. But I think if you establish a habit of giving, you're more likely to stay with the discipline through all market cycles.
One of the things that you said that I think is interesting as people think about giving and donating is that it just doesn't have to be cash, right? You can also donate assets. You can donate your time and your talents. Like there are ways to think about it more holistically.
Yes, making an impact comes in all shapes and sizes. And when I say it's very important to start the practice early, it's younger people and they may not have the type of wealth to make the impact that they want to. But donation comes not only in forms of assets, but it comes in time and it comes in expertise. So in terms of volunteering, you can volunteer your time at a soup kitchen. You may have some expertise that a foundation or a philanthropy is looking for in terms of serving on the board. You may have technological expertise. You may have financial expertise. Whatever you can donate in terms of your own expertise, your own time, and of course, in funds.
And that's especially important for younger philanthropists who are early in their careers and their earning power that may not have a lot of excess cash or assets lying around to use to support charities, organizations that they want to support.
Yeah, and remember, no gift is too small. No foundation or philanthropy is going to say, I'm sorry, I can't accept your check. It's simply made out in too small of an amount. Mm-hmm. But on that point, cash is the least effective asset to give. It's better if you have it to give a stock or an appreciated security, because that's a way to, one, let the foundation hold on to it. It may continue to grow. It's also a way for you to rebalance and reallocate your own portfolio without a tax consequence of doing so, to avoid a capital gains tax. And in down markets, you also want to remember that cash is king, and you don't want to necessarily give up all your cash from an investment perspective so that you have cash available to go into the market when the market is down. You don't want to give up that opportunity. So if you're able to donate securities or business interests, that's often a smarter a smarter donation from an investor's perspective, and it can really also benefit the philanthropy.
And Holly, we have a question from a viewer. Christina asks, Anne asks, can you talk about donor advised funds as a way to give in older ages?
Well, DAFs aren't necessarily just for older ages. Sorry, donor advised fund. It's often referred to as a DAF. It's just oftentimes a more simplistic way to give, because you can contribute to your DAF and you don't have to have the assets go out right away. You get the benefit of the gift, but you don't have to identify the cause right away. So DAFs have become much more popular in recent years to simplify philanthropy. And probably like anything else in your life, if it's easier to do, you're more likely to do it. It's also, sorry, Patty, not to interrupt you, but it's also oftentimes an easier way to keep track of your gifting.
And how is it easier to keep track of your gifting?
Because it's all going through your one fund, your DAF. It's not like keeping receipts if you're writing checks, for example, to different securities. This centralizes your giving and makes it easier for the donor when it comes to tax time, which we're in right now.
Right. And so how does that conversation with your financial advisor go? Like, what are the key things that you need to ask if you're interested in setting up a DAF?
Different organizations have DAFs and offer DAFs. So you can ask your financial advisor if they can set one up for you, or if they work with an organization that can. Most large financial institutions can certainly point you in the right direction to do that.
Yeah. I want to go back to what you kind of touched on a moment ago about younger philanthropists, or really any philanthropist. But if you are maybe not able to donate large amounts of cash or assets, I think that thinking about donating your talents and your expertise, because a lot of charitable organizations tend to run lean. They don't have big budgets. They don't have huge staffs. So you can really think about your expertise helping a cause that you want to support.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, if you're proactive in identifying the causes that are very important to you, and then you take the next step and you identify the organizations that benefit those causes where you can make a difference. And then you reach out to them and you say, how can I be helpful beyond money? You know, are you looking for volunteers? As I referenced before, at a soup kitchen. You know, at Neuberger Berman, we have a foundation, and we, through our employees, we support underserved youth through education. And we have a celebration with service month globally in May, where our employees all over the world in all of our offices are offered the opportunity to go and volunteer at different organizations worldwide that support our mission. And we have another similar program in the fall back into giving. And so we donate not only money through our foundation, but the time of our employees to come in, whether it's plant a garden or read to children, or there are a lot of different ways to make a positive impact on your community and on your causes.
Jane also has another question. She says, seems like it might make sense to wait until you're 70 and a half to donate. Could you please comment on that?
Jane, I'm a big proponent in starting your philanthropy early. I mean, even starting with your families, if you have young children, I think it's a practice. It's a learned practice. And I think it's very important. Philanthropy comes through experience, through exposure. And as Patty and I have been talking about, through volunteering our time, that's often a fun experience for an entire family to do together. And as your family gets older, perhaps instead of giving Amazon gift cards, you can give them the opportunity to give to a charity of their causes. And as I often discuss with my clients, setting aside a pool of family assets and letting every family member sort of present to the family what's important to them, where they would like to give the money and why.
I think that brings up a good point about making it a family affair and making it a family part of your family plan, because they should understand where how this is a part of your plan, something that they can also be involved in, but also, you know, at some point, they may be interested in getting involved or even continuing that legacy that you have started.
Yeah, Patty, you bring up a really good point with legacy. And I often say to my clients that with great wealth comes great responsibility. And so identifying what is important to you, what is important to your family, and it's often a way for future generations to carry out your legacies. Depending on the size of a foundation you might establish, it could last for multi-generations. And isn't it wonderful to think that something that's important to you today you'll still continue to do good through future generations of your family?
And that leads us to actually thinking about your donations aligning with your mission, because you said, you know, with great wealth comes great responsibility. And that also means a lot of, you know, demands for, or requests, I should say, for donations, for your time. But to really make an impact, you should think about it being concentrated, right?
Yes, yes. I mean, like we said in the beginning of the program, in the recent years are a very good example. COVID brought up a lot of reactive giving. It was unexpected, unanticipated causes just emerged out of a global pandemic, which of course we couldn't plan for. But knowing what is important to you and knowing what you want to have an impact on, whether it's health, education, children, specific illnesses. You know, Evelyn Lauder founded the Breast Cancer Research Foundation with the mission of curing breast cancer. We're not there yet, but they've raised so much money and had such a positive impact on breast cancer. The Gates Foundation is looking to immunize third world countries and improve the health. As I said, the Neuberger Foundation, we want to better the lives of underprivileged and underserved youth and children. And so knowing what's important to you and perhaps not making it too limited, so there is a little bit of room for interpretation and changes in the world, especially if this carries on through multiple generations. But it is really important, sort of like you have an investment strategy plan and a target asset allocation. I think it's equally important to have a plan in giving.
Right. I think the idea of the mission really being aligned, like the mission and your values being aligned with your giving. I think pointing out that some of these big family, foundations. I think the way they have identified a cause, I think with breast cancer and with the Gates Foundation, it's really focused, and it doesn't. Mhm.
Sorry, yeah, it's focused and it often comes through unfortunate personal experience, whether it's an illness in the family, the death of a loved one, whatever. Philanthropy is very, very personal. There is no right or wrong. And whatever you can give, be it time, be it expertise, be it money, it is an amazing thing to give back to your society. And I think they appreciate it, and you just feel so good about yourself. It's really one of the privileges of being a financial advisor, is to help families channel their philanthropy and identify what's important to them and really see them make a difference.
And really kind of leverage also the expertise of your financial advisor, because they're experts in this part of financial planning, and so they can also help direct you to charities and organizations that are reputable.
Absolutely. Ask your financial advisor, get advice from your accountant in terms of most efficient tax ways to gift. But financial advisors have a lot of experience in helping families navigate unfamiliar territory, whether it's investments, which is usually what we start with, and then targeting philanthropy.
Yeah, there may be some financial benefits, to donating money, assets, and resources. And it should, and I think even more important, why it should align with your values and your mission is because you're really making a commitment.
You are making a commitment. And sometimes clients ask me, Patty, my family has grown. We're on different sides of the country, or maybe even all over the world. We have very different sensibilities. And the advice that I give to people is to try to go back to your core family values. You might have different political views. You might have different outlooks. You may live in different regions. But if you go back to your core family values, whatever they may be, health, wellness, education, you usually strip out a lot of the differences that life experiences brings upon you, and you can often find a common ground.
And it's good to have these conversations with your family. Like, they should know, kind of have a general idea, where your resources are going. So there are no surprises, right? At the end, whether it's when someone passes away or there's a realization that, money has been donated somewhere. Like, it should really be part of your family money conversations.
Absolutely. And philanthropy is often the starting point for involving children in discussions around wealth. You probably don't want to share a balance sheet and income statement, your financial reports from your advisor with your children or even your young adults, but you can introduce them to philanthropy. You can introduce them to the gift of giving. You can show them through example and teach them what's important to you, what's important to your family, how you're giving your resources and making a difference, not only for yourself, but for future generations. So philanthropy is often a really good starting point to introduce children just to the whole investment experience.
And on that note, on educating children on finances and investing, right? Because that is really what's important, is kind of introducing them to these conversations early, whether it's philanthropy or saving for the future or saving for their retirement. Is that something that you help clients with also, just how to initiate the conversation with the family and with children?
Absolutely. We spend a lot of time talking about how to introduce next generation to this responsibility that they're likely to inherit. We often meet with children. We're finding next generation of our client base is even much more interested in philanthropy. And so we are having a lot more conversations than we probably did in this industry 10 or 15 years ago when I got started. Philanthropy is front and center today of young adults and young professionals. And so it is definitely top of mind and definitely on the agenda for all family meetings that we have these days.
I saw in your notes that actually millennial investors are very philanthropic. So they're picking up that baton from their parents and grandparents.
Yeah, isn't that nice? And so they're very interested also next generation in our socially responsible investing, because oftentimes that speaks to their philanthropic endeavors. So we will perhaps invest a foundation in a way that speaks to their social conscience, not only from a giving perspective, but also from an investing perspective. So with all the tools we have at our disposal today, there are many ways to express your core values and your philanthropic desires.
And you don't have to be, this kind of goes back to one of the questions that we got, that you don't have to get to this point where you're, quote, financially set, right? Where you are, maybe later in your career, or have a lot more, more discretionary income that you can be donating. It's really important to think about it, more holistically.
Yeah, I mean, it seems quite simple. And I think our older view or the traditional view of philanthropy as a, sort of an old man writing a big check. And that's all changed today. Companies, a lot of companies that we work for, like mine, have foundations, are incredibly philanthropic. And so a social conscience comes, you learn it at home. It is definitely a learned practice, but we have much more exposure today than we ever did before. And it's something that's talked about much more broadly in the whole financial scope, in your financial well-being, how to do good and do well, if you know what I mean. Invest smartly, give back, enjoy the fruits of your labor, benefit your communities.
Holly, I'm just thinking about, because this event is called Women in Wealth. Are the conversations with female clients about donating and giving, are they different?
Yeah, I mean, the conversations with women, not only from a philanthropic perspective, but from an investing perspective, are very different. Women are different types of investors than men, statistically. They tend to spend much more time thinking about their goals, financial goals and philanthropic goals. They tend to do a lot more work up front and have less of a knee-jerk reaction in their investments. So they tend to stay the course and not diverge, not to be influenced as much by, cocktail party chatter or something they might hear at the gym. So women oftentimes tend to be more successful investors than men. They might not have the confidence or the experience, but I always tell my clients, male and female, no question is too stupid. If you don't understand something, don't invest in it or don't give to it. If a philanthropy sounds very complicated or overly confusing, there is another one that you will understand how you're making a difference and give to those causes. If you don't understand it, it's a problem with them, not you.
And that is good advice just for investing overall. If it's not something that you understand and that makes sense to you, it's probably not the right investment for you either.
Correct. And if you're asking questions that you don't understand the answer to, again, the problem is not with you, it's with the person you're asking. You need to work with advisors, philanthropies that can speak your language. Make sure you understand what you're investing in, what you're giving to. It's critical.
I think that's good advice for all investors, men and women, to understand where your money is going and where you're donating it also. Holly, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you to all of you who joined us today.